I hope you're doing well.
Quite happy to be here.
Awesome. Now, let's quickly take a look at what the Education Minister, Honorable Yao Osei Educhum, had to say when a journalist posed a question about what the ministry is doing to respond to the calls by University Teachers Association of Ghana to respond to their concerns. Otherwise, they will not call off the strike. This is what he had to say.
Unfortunately, university lecturers are on strike. But we continue to engage them as to how best we can get them back. As a Minister for Education, I've said I'm the chief advocate for teachers and professors. And when we find ourselves in this space, I do everything possible, formally and informally, front door and back door, to make sure that we come to some resolution. As we did the last time, so it will happen this time around. So we continue to engage them to make sure that we can bring a resolution to this problem.
That is Honorable Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. He is the Education Minister. And over the weekend, Dr. Nkuban, who is the UTAG President for the University of Ghana campus, spoke. And he says that government has not engaged them. And of course, they were hoping that at least the president would have said something that would have sort of changed their strategy. But nothing has been said from the side of government. And so they're still going on with this strike. Richard, it's been about 3 weeks, in fact. If you calculate from when lectures were supposed to take place, that's the 17th of January. This will officially be the 3rd week. And we all know that, per the law, after 21 days, the university is supposed to shut down. Why are we not responding to the University Teachers Association of Ghana?
Well, Bella, I think that it's a critical issue that we need to look at. I think that from what the minister says, there's been engagement. And that should be ongoing. I think NLC is going to court apparently because there was an agreement that they proceed and then the negotiation will also proceed parallel to their doing their work. So I think that it reached a point of disagreement where the lecturers don't want to stay in the lecture halls as they proceed with the engagement. So I think that this needs to be addressed as urgently as possible. I think the lecturers have gotten to a point where they've dug in to say that nothing beyond getting what conditions they were promised or agreed to in 2012. And that's the irony of the situation, how they've dug in this time. I've heard others read political meanings into it and say, well, you get to a point where you hijack a government, but this has been outstanding for many years. And so I want to discount the politics, even though it's difficult to do, to say that presently there is a situation to do with many students on campuses that are stuck and need to learn, but then with the situation now is difficult. But I think the issues are straightforward. The reason why we're demonstrating has been decided. It's just a question of finding some level of agreement, the manner in which to proceed, that they do it all at once or graduate and get it done somehow. I don't think that this calls for the entrenched positions that we have seen with UTAG.
But can you blame them? Can you blame them? Because again, way back in September 2019 is when they filed that proposal to government to address the issues concerning their salaries and research allowance. And they're saying that it took a while. In fact, November 20 is when they had the first meeting to draw out, the plan. And then it took another year for government to actually respond to them. And so that whole year, nothing was addressed. And then even after that year, they agreed to call off the strike because, again, Fair Wages and Salary had agreed with them that they should call it off so they can engage and see if, the issues that they raised would be resolved by government. Nothing was done about it. And so what's the guarantee that if the NLC is saying that this strike they're embarking on is illegal and as a result they would rather have them call it off, what is the guarantee that anything will be done about their concerns, which they've been raising since 2014 up until now?
Well, I think that the conversation must be ongoing. At the end of the day, really, I just think that dialogue is what will resolve the issue. And many, many other issues that we've had always been resolved by dialogue. Strike really, well, of course, you undertake this strike actions essentially to put pressure. But I'm saying that there's a way you can engage dialogue to be able to resolve the issue. I see the urgency on their part, the need for them to press for this to be done. We see that. And I think that any of the parties engaged in this conversation understand what is at stake. But I just find it troubling to say that we'll dig in so deep to say that we don't care what happens. Let it all go bad if it has to. Some of the languages coming from it is troubling, even though one has to acknowledge the justification of the position. It doesn't also go to the extent of justifying that you can destroy anything in your wake because you want to have some
Is
right.
that how you see it, that they are destroying anything in their way?
I mean, inevitably, that's what probably is going to happen, because the university, as we speak, is losing money, right, with students on campus, and they are not doing anything. And so what is the assumption there is that after so many days on campus without students doing anything, the university has, well, more or less a norm to say that, okay, well, we'll close the school down after 3 weeks or so, because it's not productive, and they're wasting money and wasting students' time and wasting everybody's time. In a word, I'm using that advisedly. So to say that we engage and teach and then pursue our negotiations, I think is a better outcome for all of us. The thing about it is that I've always maintained that in some of these negotiations, you can actually integrate public opinion in this conversation. So you can actually make this a public discussion whilst you are still teaching.
Okay.
You understand?
While they're still teaching.
Whilst they're still teaching.
But sometime July,
what I'm saying
the
is
vice president went to speak to them, promised them that they'll resolve the issues. Nothing happened, and that's why they embarked on the strike in August 2021.
No, I agree with you. What I'm saying is that if you look at it this way, just integrate public opinion. We're talking about the issue. It's as a result of the strike, right? But we can still engage this issue without the strike, because they are going back to teach. And we all agree that, yes, go back to teach, but this issue must be resolved. So we can carry this as a public conversation, notwithstanding that they are in the classroom, and the pressure can appropriately be brought. I'm saying that let's not just break all the eggs. We must break some eggs to make omelet. But in this instance, they're breaking all the eggs. We need to make omelets tomorrow. And we're not preserving the eggs for tomorrow. We're just making an omelet today. What about tomorrow? That's the thinking. I'm saying that we need to look at this situation, draw a line at a certain point. The point they want to make has been emphasized sufficiently. Everybody knows that they have a grievance, and we've known they have a grievance. The point is the negotiation. We need to deal gradually and get this thing resolved. The entrenched positions now, I think, is troubling, and we need to look at it again.
Well, we have Honorable Roxton Dafiamapo joining us as well, and he is the MP for Sadai. Good morning. Good to have you in the studios. I'll come to you shortly, by the way. I just want to ask you one more thing, because you're talking about the fact that they should continue teaching while they engage the public. Let me just mention that NUGS, in the first week when UTAG declared strike, they said they were in support of UTAG, because those are their lecturers, and if the lecturers are asking for better conditions of service, of course, they deserve it, and so they should go ahead. Government should go ahead and heed to their calls. Aside that, I mean, there's also research. The lecturers don't just teach in the lecture halls. They also do research. They do extension services. All those ones are not on hold yet, even though they are asking for the pittance research allowance to also be re-looked at. So all those are going on except teaching. And that's why I keep saying that regardless, it's not as if we've not come here before. We've gotten to this point where they called off the strike because they had faith in government that they would go ahead and do something about it, and nothing was done. Now the students are also saying that if this is what our lecturers are asking for, we also support them 100%. Don't you think that the people who are rather doing something wrong here is government, because they have not heeded to their calls?
Certainly, but I wouldn't go as far as to say government is doing something wrong, or anybody for that matter is doing anything wrong. And I want to be clear that I don't blame the UTAG necessarily for striking, but I'm only asking for reasonability to say that if we are engaging in getting what is due us, let's not deny others what is due them. Because as we speak, students have paid their school fees, right? And are ready to obtain tuition. And
governments knew all this.
But I'm just saying that, let's not look at government and look at UTAG
But
in
UTAG
isolation.
has made its demand.
I'm just saying that.
All government has said is that we continue to engage and negotiate.
Yeah.
In fact, the president of UTAG at the University of Ghana, Dr. Nkuban, said nobody has even engaged them in the first place.
Well, you and I just heard the minister says they
But
are
that's his
engaging.
word against that of the UTAG president. And they are the ones making the demands. And
Well, I mean,
we have not been engaged.
These are institutions of repute. And I expect that they are both leaders who must do the right thing. What I heard is the minister says they're engaging. I don't know any different from that. I don't want to take him at his word, and this is a public utterance the minister made. So if they are engaging per his utterance, I think that they are engaging. But if they are not engaging, that is troubling. I cannot imagine a world in which, with the enormity of the situation that we face, that the individuals who must solve the problem are not engaging. For me, it doesn't make sense. I can't reconcile it. So I'm disposed to thinking that they're engaging rather than not engaging. It's a difficult position to actually begin to believe that they are not engaging. So I believe they are engaging. As to why the UTAG president, I think the University of Ghana president was saying they are not engaging, I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of engagement he wants that is not happening. But I'm saying that I take the minister's word.
Is the NLC hiding behind, or is government hiding behind the NLC to declare that this strike is illegal, which is what they also have asserted?
You see, I wouldn't go, I mean, my brother is a lawyer, he can talk about it, but I'm just saying that I am not so minded to say it's legal or it's illegal. I'm just saying that the moral of it, the reasonableness of the situation is what I am arguing, to say that what works, okay? This issue, can we explore a different strategy? Maybe they've explored that. But let's have an active media presence, if that's what, because the strike they're doing, the only way we know about it is, one, students are not being taught, and two, is actively in the media. So we can engage a media campaign to say that, look, government, this is our demand. Let's engage in the media. But meanwhile, we're doing the right thing by still teaching our students. There's a precedent. Okay, I don't want to go as far as that. There's a precedent where there was a critical strike like this. People were told, go back to work. They won't go back to work. And government had to take very drastic decisions to have all those striking employees go. But that is extreme situation.
Are we not getting close to that? Because in '95, there was a university shut down because of a strike. Are you not worried that after 21 days, there's a likelihood that the universities will shut down?
I am worried.
Parents have paid school fees. They've paid hostel fees.
Exactly.
We're going to push back the calendar.
Yes, I am worried to the extent that we're even just now trying to find our footing from COVID, right? The university calendar has been trumped. I think up until this year, they were doing this modular system up and down. So they are now even getting to restructure and get their footing to restore normal academic calendar. So it's rather a very precarious situation that we're in. But I'm just saying that let us all rise up to be leaders and not be so entrenched in our positions to say that if I don't get what I want, nothing moves.
Okay.
It cannot be the way we build this country.
Okay. Council, good to have you in the studios again. What do you say to Mr. Richard Ahiangba indicating that, you know, the University Teachers Association of Ghana should be in the classroom while still negotiating? I mean, we've heard from them and they're saying that we've been here before where we called off the strike because you promised us that you would address our concerns. Nothing was done about it. And so what's the guarantee that you even might do that, especially because we've not heard from you? Should they have remained in the classroom while negotiating?
Well, thank you. Good morning, Richard, and good morning to my people in Southern, Peki, Balik, Beveton. You see, Richard and his government are missing the point.
Which is?
Which is that the essence of strike is to bring pressure to bear on government to deliver demands of the asking group. Now, what is UTAG asking for? They are saying that the problem has become a perennial one. Every year it comes up. They go to the negotiation table. Understandings are reached. They are put into a memorandum. They are properly executed. There's a roadmap for rolling out the terms of those memoranda. Now, they will They will play their part. But then it turns out that government will always renege on following up on the roadmap and implementing the terms of the memo. So strike has become the last resort for them. So if you say that they should go back to classroom, once you negotiate, it's neither here nor there. Because they got here because they have been writing reminders, issuing statements reminding government that you owe us A, B, C, D. Deliver. Government won't deliver. I heard Richard speak of school fees. The school fees don't go to the schools. They don't go to the lecturers. The school fees go to government. Indeed, this government has introduced a law that caps even how much the schools can retain now. And it's so high. So the schools are unable to even apply their IGF to sort out a few of the things that they do. Everything now goes to the central government. You understand me? So they are so incapacitated. So if the issue is that they are understanding and you ought to deliver, please do. And also for government communication on this matter hasn't been reasonable. He speaks of reasonableness. They have not been reasonable with the UTAG members. Why? For instance, to tell them that if they are not willing to go back to classroom, they can consider themselves unemployed, and they can decide to resign. The government can recruit others. Such communications, it poisons the air. And for that to come from a seasoned PR person like Elankra at the Labour Commission was worrying and troubling. So for me, I have a daughter in the university. And so the students are, in addition to not receiving...
Elankra, by the way, is a fair wages and salary.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So for the fact that they are not receiving teaching or lesson notes, there are also accommodation issues that the huge numbers presently admitted are facing. So the problems are being compounded for the student. So we are getting to a crisis situation. And just a small correction, the shutdown was in 96. 96, because
okay.
I ought to have entered university that year.
Oh, I see.
So we ended up entering university in 97.
In 19, okay.
So and it was 10 months. We call it shadow strike. So we need to be careful. And I keep asking that 2 years ago, the universities themselves rolled out a policy to improve, as it were, delivery of lecture notes, not face-to-face, but by Zoom. That's e-lessons. What's happening to those? All right? If we could consider that, well, even though we are on strike, like it's saying, we could be delivering lecture notes or lessons.
But it will be the same lecturers who would have to do that work, and they're not willing to.
Yes, you see, if I'm the head of department, I can sit in my office, or as the dean, I can sit in my office, they will deliver lecture notes and still work on their research papers. It's less strenuous than to go to N block and face 2,000 students at a time. So we need to be very innovative once we deal with the problem. Okay. But the essence of striking, and it's not only the UTAG members who are also agitating. FUSAG is agitating, and TEWU is also agitating.
TEWU called off.
Yes, but it's not as if the problem... Yeah, exactly. It was just a temporary call-off to see whether government will eventually meet their demands, either halfway or fully. So I know times are very hard, but government should show commitment and deliver on some major items for them, so that on that basis, then we, the members of the generality of the public, can ask them to go back, whilst government will meet them or be able to deliver on the rest of their.
Do you think the NLC has been fair to UTAG, especially because if there's an issue between the employer and the employee, the NLC is supposed to deliberate. Yeah. But in this case, they are only saying that UTAG went on an illegal strike. And so they're asking UTAG to come back into the lecture halls and continue with teaching. But you don't hear them also asking for government to also do its part to ensure that the UTAG gets what it wants.
The Labour Commission it's a common rhetoric from the Labour Commission when workers of states do this. Sometimes they will even rush to court to seek a judicial injunction against the declaration of strike, and they've done it a couple of times against teachers, against nurses, against public servants or civil servants, and against university teachers. To say that the strike is illegal, I'm struggling to see the illegality here. Is it that they breached the law in declaring the strike? There are some conditions that must be met before a strike can be declared. Didn't they meet those conditions? Is the Labour Commission saying that first they didn't have any engagement with them?
But
or
the Labour law says
they didn't bring their grievances before them for adjudication, and which when it fails, then they can go back.
But that's the thing. So the Labour Law Act 651 says
Yes.
that you cannot embark on a strike and then come back for negotiations, which is why they declared it illegal.
You see, this strike action, I don't think it's a fresh one. It is not a fresh strike action. If you listen to the to UTAG, they are striking because of the failure of government to deliver on terms that they had reached prior.
Yeah, in August.
So so this is a running matter. This is not a fresh development. Which Labour Commission could they say that you must bring this matter before us for adjudication, and which when it fails, then you have the right to embark on the strike. It's not a new development. It's a continuing matter. And I know that it's gone before Labour Commission before.
And even the fair wages, because on November 3, 2021, they're saying that they wrote a letter to fair wages to indicate that they would embark on strike if the initial agreement was reneged on.
So these are some of the rhetorics that infuriate them. It doesn't make government look reasonable in the circumstances. And so the pendulum will have to swing back to Richard and government to say that they rather ought to be reasonable in the matter and exhibit a bit more of commitment. The commitment is being rhetoric, it's being hot air so far. Yes, they are blowing hot air so far. They are not delivering. And to deliver is to give directives. Finance Ministry should give directives, should give clearance that this ABCD be paid.
Okay.
And once that is done, then they will see that this is concrete commitment to our cause.
Okay. But the NLC Executive Secretary, Dr. Fosu Asamoah, he spoke and he said that even when they interacted with UTAG after they declared the strike, UTAG agreed that they would call off the strike, which is why they've taken them to court, because they had that deliberation. UTAG said, we will call off the strike, so we engaged. Exactly. But you still went ahead to continue with the strike, and so we're taking you to court because of that.
Well, let's see what the court says in that regard. Yes.
Let's see what the court says. But Richard, I mean, I'll let you come in and respond to this. I would want us to move on quickly. Still talking about education, by the way, because yesterday the education minister touched on a few things concerning the E-block. And one of the things he talked about was the fact that there was wrong situation of these blocks, which is why it made it difficult for them to operationalize some of the E-blocks. And aside that, how do you start a project without adequate funding? We'll play that video shortly. But Richard, I'll just let you touch on this briefly if you have to, so we carry on.
Yeah, I appreciate my brother's input. I think that the issue cannot be minimized in any way. It's real. It involves people on both sides, right? The UTAG is demanding justifiably what he thinks is its fair wage to be given to it, and there are students' life also involved in this. And yes, when I meant the school fees paid, not necessarily to the university, but they have paid nonetheless, right? That's money that is not with them if they want to use it for anything.
Yeah.
And so it's a condition that we need to look at dispassionately and see that we are trying to build a country here and therefore come to the conversation with that understanding. My thinking is that there is public conversation or dialogue always work. And in a democratic setup, that's the only avenue we have. There's no other remedy in our setup to resolve issues. We must talk about them. Strike, yes, is an implement you can use, but I think that is an adverse implement, because what it does is that it creates a lot of problem in its wake. Because if the problem is resolved today, what is lost is lost. But the salaries and conditions of service can be restored, right, with maybe probably backdating them and doing whatever it is they have to do to them to make it fair. But what loss that is occasioned by the strike action is permanent. My brother is telling you he probably should have entered the university in 96, but got in 97. I mean, we can sit and not worry about what he lost between that 1 year, but it is real, okay? So we're saying that let's not sacrifice a permanent loss for a loss, however.
No, the effect was real because, you know, in 97, the universities were compelled to admit 2 batches of students.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more students.
95 batch and the
96
96 batch.
Exactly.
So it brought a lot of pressure to bear on amenities.
Right.
You know, and resources.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can see.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Very, very terrible. If
I
you
can
recall,
imagine.
That was when the non-residential status of students in the tertiary university started.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see, so we
Because the admitted numbers were extremely huge.
exactly. So you see where we are. So assuming that the problem for the lecturers were resolved when they called school back into session, the damage that has been caused is permanent and is real. And so I think that we ought to learn from history and say never again. If we don't learn from history and we say, well, we'll pull it till, you know, it breaks off, we'll be actually hurting ourselves in the process. And I don't know if you play that game where you hold one end of a rubber tie and another person, and incidentally somebody leaves it. You who keeps holding on to it gets snapped by it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that we're pushing ourselves to a breaking point. We need to come to understand that there is a need for us. When I say to be reasonable, I'm using that respectfully and advisedly to say that let's see what we can save. Okay. And whilst we have the opportunity, let's save it. This issue about the legality of the issue, I'm aware of the processes and all of that, that perhaps NLC, Fair Wages, feels that UTAG short-circuited. I'd say that at this point, let's not push those.
Okay.
Let's get to the point where we're saying that what can we extract from here so that we save what we potentially can lose.
All right, let's head back now to that press conference with the education minister where he touched on the E-blocks. And like I said earlier, he mentioned that some of them were situated, you know, in the bush. And so it made it difficult and very far away. In fact, some 2 miles away from the villages and the towns where the students naturally were. And so it made it very difficult to operationalize it. And so they've been focusing on building dormitory blocks for some of them, so that eventually they can operationalize that and a few other things that he touched on concerning the E-blocks. Take a look.
I speak with you, have been told that we are at about 95% completion, and we are pushing to get the girls' dormitory and boys' dormitory all completed so that we can open the school. So when you hear about people saying you've abandoned them, we attempted to open Drobonso. The 3 students that went there cried their hearts out. We had to go and evacuate them and take them to Chirumbu Akodua. Saura, Community Senior High School, beautiful school. But children are coming from villages walking, and those who can't walk back to their villages have to find a family member to stay with, all the challenges, especially for the girls. So the government once again said, why don't we put dormitory blocks? I'm happy to inform you that now we have a girls' dorm completed. The students will be in April 4th, and that will be a watershed moment for that school, because now it's a boarding school. So it's no longer going to be called community day school. Same is being done. We are doing same at a number of community senior high schools so that it could be operationalized well, so that the students will not have to go through the aggravation of having to find family members to stay with. So I want you to know that E-blocks have not been abandoned. And the interesting thing is when you have something, water for me? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. When you have a situation where you want to build, but you don't budget for it, and then you say, when you are no longer there, then you say that, why have you not completed the buildings? And I'm asking, where is the money? There were 200 E-blocks that were going to be built. 124 was started, very good. Out of the 124, 23 had dedicated source of funds from the World Bank through the Secondary Education Improvement Project. All of them has been completed. The rest of them, budgetary allocations, was supposed to be year by year, so that when there's some money, you can do something. Consequently, some of them have not been done.
All right, so that's what the Education Minister had to say. I'll start off with you, Council, because he says that, first of all, you start a project, you've not budgeted for it, and you blame government for not being able to complete it. And secondly, how do you situate some of these E-blocks very far away from the towns and expect that they'll be operationalized when there are no dormitory blocks for the students?
First of all, let the record reflect that I'm in court on this matter. I've sued government for neglecting to continue this project. So it's a matter that's before court. So I'll be very gingerly about my point.
Okay.
It's not correct that the E-block projects were located far from civilization. It's not correct. Indeed, in a lot of the cases, they are located in communities. In some cases, there had been wranglings. So the district education director will advise that they are located between two of those communities, equidistant from each other. Because these schools are meant to be day secondary schools. It was a way of filling the gap in respect of areas where we don't have secondary schools readily available in the community or in the locality. So, for instance, if you go to Adaklu, the school is located between two communities so that students from there and students from the other side can easily walk to school. Okay. I walk to school in secondary school. So how is it possible that today we can say that it's not good for day students to walk to school and walk back? You see, it's a means of finding justification for what's happening. And again, the things he said, he shot himself in the foot.
How so?
One, there was secure funding for 23. Those have been delivered. The funding for the other 177, that would be, was supposed to come from GOG, annual budgetary funding. The NDC started 124, like it said. Completed about 48, 49. Sometimes the figures change.
Okay.
So let's say we completed 50 and left.
You completed 50?
And left. If the figures keep changing.
The minister says you completed only 23.
No. He said 23 has secure funding. And I have his own response to Parliament in answer to questions. So sometimes in the budget they will say 49. Sometimes they will say we completed 50. But those that were actually completed. So what he meant was that 23 that had World Bank secure funding were completed. Yeah. Then GOG funding also completed some, which made it up to about 49 or 50. I want to have a round figure.
Okay.
So let's say 50 were completed before the NDC exited power. It means that 74 were at various stages of completion. So as a government that is committed to completing this, you see, government is not NDC government or NPP government. I speak of government as the state. If the state were truly committed to completing this, it was the duty of the new Minister of Education which he then was the deputy, to make budgetary provisions for the completion of this. From what he said. So if he says that where is the money, he didn't make provision in the budget in 2017, 2018 to have them completed. That is my answer to him. Because, yes, I'm supposed to fund the program from GOG. I'm no longer in exercising executive power of state to be able to make those allocations. So if I exit power and Richard comes, and the project, the expectation of our citizens is that those projects will be completed, then it was the duty of Richard, who is now given the power to exercise executive power of state, including the power to spend state money, to make allocations.
But they can only make allocations within their budget.
But what is the budget? The budget is that every year you determine your priority projects. So you vary the priority of the ministry from completing these E-blocks to something else. The intention of the ministry from the word go was not to make these schools boarding schools. No. They are supposed to simply be community schools, day schools.
If they've come in for free SHS,
hold on.
Then things have changed.
Exactly. That's where I'm heading. So if you assume power and you bring a new alignment in terms of policy orientation to the ministry, which meant that you needed more secondary schools in order to roll it out, my expectation would have been that completion of E-blocks would have been a major consideration, because it would have been a major source of absorbing the huge numbers that would benefit under the free SHS policy. And this is what we have been asking them in Parliament. So they are rather spending money to build more classroom blocks in secondary schools where even lands are no longer available. Instead of expanding, completing the community schools and expanding access in terms of admitting more students. So eventually they've gone a full circle to now say that, okay, they consider the E-blocks important, but then they realize that they are day schools originally. So they are adding boarding facilities to make them more beneficial under the free SHS. So for the 5 years that they've wasted and allowed some of the facilities to deteriorate, and you saw the minority ranking member and his deputy on education, they've gone round the country trying to video, because when we made the complaints, when we criticized government on these matters, people thought we were concocting the stories. So they had to go out with a video camera in hand to actually videotape some of these structures. Some good citizens were also called upon to videotape them from their communities and send to us. So there's a whole documentary on it. Some have even been completed. Government is simply unwilling to commission them. You heard of the Krobo one, where the chief actually said, if you won't come and complete this, if you won't come and open this school for my people to use, then come and take the school off my land. It generated some interesting debates, but that's how desperate some stakeholders have become in this matter. So I am happy to hear the minister say that now they are committed, they are building boarding facilities. But let him not be heard say or state that the facilities were not properly located.
You remember that they cancelled some 27 contracts for the E-blocks as well, and they said that there was a slow pace of the contractors in completing it. And in fact, you did not even provide funding for these contractors. You wanted them to provide their own funding, put it up, and then later come to you for payments. And that was proving, a challenge to these contractors. So they had to cancel them.
Bella, they are building, the present government is building some school infrastructure in my district. In Pekin Secondary School, they are building two structures. In Pekin Secondary Technical, there's one structure which they have come to start. At Kwebe Secondary Technical, two structures are under construction. Have they given money to these contractors? When the contractors win the contracts, these days, I don't even think that they give mobilization. You are encouraged to look for money and complete the project and get paid. Or they encourage you to look for funding, start the project, and when you get to a stage, you raise what they call the IPC, the interim payment certificates, and they pay you. So so they pay you on quantum merit basis. That's how it is described in law. Whichever level you've gotten to, you raise a certificate and they pay you. Then you continue until you deliver. In Peki Government Training College, there's an assembly hall under construction. And they just completed a hostel, a four-story guest hostel.
Okay.
The contractors were not giving money. So when they say, where is the money? It's a zero argument to make. You have awarded the project as a government. The government has no color because that's the state. When a political party campaigns to exercise executive, to be given the power to exercise executive powers of state, and you are given, it's your duty to continue with priority projects. If you change the priority and those projects suffer delay and deterioration, who will have to blame you? Because you are making the budgetary allocation. You don't ask the existing government, where is the money? With all due respect, President John Mahama hasn't gone home with the money of the state.
Okay.
You understand me?
Okay.
So they should stop this argument of where is the money and prioritize projects that seeks to serve the needs of the people well.
Okay.
The road projects that they are awarding, where is the money? But they are awarded from GOG. So as and when we collect taxes, then you allocate them according to your priority areas and you pay contractors. There's no money sitting anywhere that this is the money we have for, say, Eastern Corridor. No. Eastern Corridor Road has suffered for nearly 5 years. They've just gone back to restart it because there's a budgetary allocation for it. So as and when the contractor works, he will be paid. So as I speak, they are in Southern, and I'm happy. So nobody said that there's 100 million for Eastern Corridor and the money is sitting there, and you come and you don't apply it. No, it is from tax monies that we collect.
Okay. Richard, so when the MPs on the Education Committee visited some of these e-block sites, they mentioned that there was a $1.5 billion facility that was approved by Parliament from Get Fund, and that was supposed to have completed these projects. You've waited all this while, and now we're even being told that you need 50% more of the money that was allocated for the e-blocks before you be able to complete it. If you had done that earlier, I don't think that would have needed this much money to complete it. So why this delay? We've heard from the minister, however, but a number of them are saying that it doesn't wash. You can't tell us that because we located it, in between two communities, that should be a reason for you to say that we got it wrong. And so, we need some more money to complete it. What do you say to this?
Quickly before it comes in, have they relocated any of these schools? Have they? If they are complaining that they've been located out of civilization, have they relocated the schools?
But can they relocate? I mean, if you have these schools there, that's another money that you're going to spend.
You see, building schools,
another school.
If you build school, is a growth pool project. It has a way of attracting its own investment. Schools are like hospitals. When you build them, you attract other businesses, like hostels.
But what happens to the e-blocks that are already situated in whatever community they
But I'm saying that, so it's a big lie to say that they are located out of existence, out of civilization. They are not.
All right, please let Richard speak on this one.
Well, I was going to say something else, but what my brother said, really, just let's concentrate on that for a second.
Okay.
They have not relocated any, but what the minister says is that now they have had to build boarding facilities to make it usable. Otherwise, you expose the kids to, walking long distances, right? I see the logic in trying to site it between towns so that it is communal use. But if that puts us in a situation where it becomes a burden to solve the problem of proximity, you create a problem in of itself by putting it where the kids, now you can point and say, well, that school is just near here, but then it's a long distance to get there. Okay, so you have to then put infrastructure in place to say either build a hostel or run a transport system that gets the students commuted from their village or their town to the school back and forth. So these are real problems that needs to be solved. But you see, yes. So it's the convenience of saying that, GOG must pay and all of these things. It has to be stated, and it's stated. And I'm saying that let's not engage in this back and forth argument. What is real is that we need to educate our children. The government coming in prioritized to say that we want to do free education. Free education is real, and I can tell you on a daily basis the kinds of stories I hear. And even recently, students who have finished school and are going into universities because of free SHS that is giving them opportunity. And I come from a place where I know a lot of people benefit from this because cost was really a barrier to many. Okay, so we have solved the problem. Now, of course, the outstanding issue of expanding, infrastructure for children to be able then to access their free education is another real problem that the government has confronted head on. I commend them if they had succeeded in building all these e-blocks. It would have been useful in expanding the access that we thought under free SHS. You see, so that wasn't done. Under them, I think, if my memory serves me right, a sum total of close to about a little over 800 classroom blocks were added under them, right, in 8 years. Okay, they could have done better. That is, some probably could house anywhere. I remember reading a report about that some time ago. Could house about just a little over 30,000 or so students. Okay. And so, but because of the pressure and the Get Fund facility that you talked about, government applied that to try to expand the infrastructure. I remember the track system that we have had to have because of the sudden increase in numbers. So as it stands now, government is built in excess of 2,000, close to about 2,800. Or so classroom blocks that is capable of, taking close to about in excess of 110 students. So now look at that in 4 years. We've come a long way. The point is that we need to continue to make that investment. So what the minister is saying essentially is that we have capacity in this community, day schools that were built. The only challenge with them is that you can't use them now. Even if you go to complete them, you can't use them because of the practical burden that it puts on the students. So that has to be mitigated. I don't think the minister was saying it to say that because of that, we're not going to do anything about it. We'll do something about it. But before we can have that place to be used by our students, we have to do something else, which is the deficiency of their planning and implementation, because they didn't conceive the practical burden this was going to put on students. And therefore, even though it was originally conceived as a day school, add some facility that will create, that comfort for students to be able to stay. He says a school is a growth pole, yeah, but I don't see a secondary school being a growth pole as much as a university would be. So there are different levels of growth pole that education can bring, or even a hospital can bring. But a secondary school, even though can be a growth pole, but will not be a growth pole proportional to a university. So those two things are something that we need to consider. So you need to do a bit more investment to make a secondary school become a growth pole. That investment they didn't do. They just build a school structure, come from your house and go. How you get there was not part of their conception. And I think that that's the challenge the ministry is facing.
Okay.
And that's what they have a responsibility to deal with, and I'm sure they are doing it.
Did we get our priorities wrong to some extent, such that we could have taken our time with the implementation of free SHS? So instead of having this double track system, we'd rather expand infrastructure. And that way, maybe we could have gotten ready some of these e-blocks with their dormitories before rolling out the free SHS plan, so that we can have a lot more students who would have places to sleep, because we know clearly that there have been challenges, even with accommodation for some of these students as well.
Yeah, I mean, even our universities, we still have challenges, but we're not saying people should stay home till we build before they come to university. The essential point is that How do you stop? And that was the same argument we were making during the UTAG conversation. How do you get to a point where you say, okay, well, let's hold on. Life continues on a daily basis. Whether you are up and moving or not, the days continues to roll. So my point is that we couldn't have said so. And that was the fallacy in their thinking to say that, oh, they are going to do progressive free SHS, right? Whilst you're doing progressive free SHS, there are people who have been regressing or have been regressive in life because you are not factoring them. They are Ghanaians. They've been inhibited by cost to go to school. The nation has a responsibility. In fact, it is a responsibility that you cannot neglect because it actually factors itself into your development.
But don't they compound their problems if they're going to these schools and cannot find places to sleep? In some cases, we've heard of shortage of food items for some of these students in some of the secondary schools.
Yeah.
And so why do you compound their problems by sending them in when you know that you've not resolved all these other challenges?
But you see, and I was telling you that, you know, you and I sitting here, all our life's problems have not been solved, right? Should we say that until my life problems are solved, I won't get out of my house to come here? You can't say that, right? So you walk and chew gum at the same time. And I'm telling you, as somebody who understands and have experience, people being dropped out of school or people not being part of education because of cost. This free SHS was needed to have been implemented many, many years ago, not just 2017.
Okay.
The idea, let me just, no, you will.
Hold on, I'll let you speak, please,
you understand?
Council.
The idea that somehow we should wait till we build everything and now we say we are ready to go. Even let me use, I think we both of us can relate to something like this. People say, oh, I want to marry, but I want to buy a house, I want to buy a car. They tell you that, well, you don't have to buy or have all the resources before you go get married. You understand? Because if you want to do that, you'll be 60. You'll be 70. Perhaps you'll be dead before you are ready to get married. So I'm saying that in life, we cannot apply that logic because whilst you are waiting to build, there are people who are being left behind. The NDC, when they were talking about this progressive thing, a lot of people were left behind. When we started free SHS, you saw the numbers. You saw how many people have access to education. Now, if we apply that logic to say we are not going to start free SHS until we finish the infrastructure, until we finish this, until we finish that. Do you know how many people? And you have caused a damage that is irreparable because people would have gone on from when they were ready to get into it.
But now our finances are constrained.
But we have to do it.
Okay.
We have to find a way to do it. I don't know if we're going to talk about the rest of the economic issues, but we need as a nation to find solution to it. We cannot renege on that responsibility. It's fundamental.
Okay.
Now, they chose to prioritize their interest in saying that they want to do progressive free SHS. We believe that every Ghanaian citizen has a right and must be afforded a chance to go to school.
All right.
We have done that, and I think that that's the best thing we have done. We must continue to address the challenges that come with it, but it is never a solid argument to say that let's get all the infrastructure, then we'll open the floodgate, by which time we won't have the people
All
waiting.
right. Council, before you come in, let's just allow Cookie to read some comments. Let's hear from our viewers what they think of the issues that are being discussed at the moment. Cookie.
All right. So quite quickly, first one says, was it not the MPP government that told the entire Ghanaian public that because of abject poverty of the Ghanaian majority, they would not hesitate at all in giving free SHS to potential Ghanaian students nationwide? Today, those poor Ghanaian plebs who cannot pay school fees for their awards are demanded to pay e-levy to augment the development of the various expensive infrastructure in Ghana. Wow, what an awful shame. Ahmed from Tamale sent in that one. Johnny, could you believe that there's a traffic light at Hodome 4 Junction that has been off for the past 3 months, and as I write, it's still not on? These 4 junctions, this junction connects Aflao, Ho Barracks and Sugakope. Are we safe? Many minor accidents are happening there. I call them minor because it's not putting any scare in the minister to be woke. Demoto Jerry Sampson from Ho sent in that one. Musa Abato in Kumasi says anybody who is supporting e-levy is a selfish person. The Auditor General's report reveals that from 2016 to 2020, the Akufo-Addo government has misappropriated over 12 billion Ghana cedis from the taxpayers' money, yet they think only 6 million cedis from e-levy will solve all of our problems. We are told it's going to affect our savings. Which government in its right senses would tax its citizens directly from their pockets? This is theft. Drop killer e-levy now. That's the hashtag he added. It's rather unfortunate those who make decisions on fuel do not buy fuel. So we can't live for 2 weeks with that fuel increment in this country. This current government is a disappointment to the nation in history. Osman Bukrisong in Tamale sent in that one. Bella, I recommend UTAG for taking the bold steps for their conditions of service to be improved. Much as they are pressing for their demands, they should equally realize that they are denying students from their rights. Mr. Dafia Makpo and the NDC should equally take the blame since the issue dates back to 2012. Government will weather the storm. From Adam Swale in Tamale. Prince Henry in Koforidia says, Dear Alaji Dr. Baumia, are you aware? He's speaking like Johnny. Fuel prices are up, data prices are up, cost of rent is going up, food prices are also up, cost of water and electricity keep going up. Ghana debt also keeps rising. Hashtag Johnny's Bite. Hashtag TV3Newday. He's just speaking like Johnny there. Please tell the MPP man to inform the education minister that the backlogs are suffering, so he should post us. And this coming from Enoch in the Volta region. Bella, from what I'm seeing from our leaders, I now believe that PhD is not for common sense. It's an academic award. Wow. That's harsh. Rahiz Welbeck sent in that one from Kukumlimlim. Abdul Basit Zongo Pania Kumasi says, my incoming women organizer, Honorable Ellen Amadako, I plead with the UTAG to suspend the issue of strike and solve the matter on a round table. E-levy is coming to help Ghanaians, so let's support it to make Ghana proud. The education, okay, Bella, I'll just leave it here so that you can.
There's one that we missed. Something on NLC.
Workers of NLC
at the bottom.
Oh yeah,
okay,
NLC
so
workers,
the last
yeah.
one that says, I want to know if NLC workers had ever gone on strike before. If yes, this is a good one. If yes, what are they asking for? And if no, what are their conditions of service and allowance currently? Can we compare their conditions of service and allowances to the UTAG? This is a very good one. Unfortunately, you didn't add your name.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cookie, and thank you for your messages as well. Just a few minutes before we wrap up, but Council, you wanted to touch on this issue.
Quickly. What is the funding source for NAPCO? Richard.
Proceed with your point.
What's the funding source for free SHS?
Proceed for your point.
What's the funding source for the motorway that you intend to undertake? What's the
any reason why you're asking him all these questions?
No, because you
sound like a quiz master.
Suddenly they're asking Don Mahama where his funding source was for the starting of 200.
No, that was not a question.
No, it was.
No, that was not a question. They're saying that you don't have a dedicated funding source.
But that is a funding source.
Yeah, but you see,
Richard,
Bella said
Richard.
it. Now you see, when we're talking about the free SHS, the infrastructure expansion, we found Get Fund, collateralize, and then use that money to do it. You didn't have any arrangement such as that, right?
No, that was funding from Get Fund.
That's not correct.
No.
That's what I'm saying, that we had to do that. But you didn't have any such arrangement, except that you thought the government of Ghana will do it without any vehicle.
No, but the E-blocks were being funded by Get Fund.
Yeah. It was a $1.5 billion facility.
No, that was after them.
No, that was approved in Parliament.
It was E-block. Yeah. That was funding.
Not
Get Fund. Get Fund was funded.
E-blocks.
But
they were funded by Get Fund.
Right.
And
but
Get Fund was receiving statutory payments from government.
No, I agree. What I'm telling you is that when we came, we had to collateralize 1.5 billion to do that. That gave you a dedicated income or revenue to want to do that in a concerted way, which we did. I'm just saying that whilst you rely on Get Fund to do that, you didn't have a vehicle such as that to say that...
You changed the trajectory of funding for Get Fund. That is what you did. That is why you abandoned the
you proceed with your point.
You understand me? You varied their priority projects. When you came, their priority projects included the building of the E-blocks. You said no. In fact, we are going to take the funding, the available funds, and move it into free SHS. and then you collateralize. So now, what GetFund gets to do with projects is peanuts. 2, you have said that double track. Are you aware that we have about 800 secondary schools? Only about 300 are included under double track.
Okay.
Under free SHS. Only about
Only
300.
300.
Yes, only 300. So the rest 500 run a single track. And you load these schools with students. They don't have dormitories. The students are renting, parents are renting for students as young as 13. These were issues we raised. You were not bothered. All your concentrations were on double track. Even the double track in some of the schools like Peking Secondary School, parents were hiring rooms in communities like Chame, Wudome, Afetile for their wards who were under double track. As we speak, we have not completed all these dormitories. He says they are building how many? 2,000 educational facilities. We want to see the list. Region by region, district by district.
You want to see that list?
Yes, it's not happening.
Well,
They are at various stages of, some have even been abandoned. They are unable to pay the contractors.
But how do you say it's not happening when they are saying that this is what we're
No,
going to
what
do?
I know, for instance, in South Dine, there are about four constructions going that have gone on or is ongoing and ever since they came. It's not been completed. So when you say you have built about 2,000 to ensure expansion, in South Dine you have not even completed the projects.
Okay.
So they have added up to the abandoned projects in some of the schools.
Okay. Well, we have to wrap up. Unfortunately, our
but-
time is up. We have to go. I'm
just
being
a quick
counted
one.
down.
Just
10 seconds, please.
10 seconds, yes. So you see, so what I was saying with my brother's situation is that we found a way to dedicate GetFund's funding to concentrate on infrastructure. So though they have other means.
Is it
now you
E-block
can
and infrastructure?
Okay.
E-block it is. But you see,
Is
the
it
point
E-block
was
and
that
infrastructure?
if you say we're going to fund it through GetFund had other priorities. Right? So if you really wanted to do that, the question, the statement of the minister is clearly that you didn't have a dedicated vehicle to build the structures that you wanted to build. And that is plain.
Okay.
And that is a fair point
They
to
can
make.
be nothing
All
But
right.
it's not to
more
say.
We have to
than
go,
getting
gentlemen.
money from
We have to go. Our
GetFund.
time
My
is up.
brother,
I've been
Richard.
speaking to
GetFund
Richard
is
Ahiagba.
GetFund.
He's the
It's
Deputy
so
Director of
dedicated.
Research
You
at the
can
Presidency.
priority.
And Honorable Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo is the MP for South Dai. This is the big issue, and this is how we wrap up. We have Sami Jamfi, the Communications Director for the NDC, joining Johnny Hughes on the show for an exclusive. And later, we'll have Alfred Okante also break it further down what the charges would be if the e-levy is passed in Parliament. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.